I think we're live.
Yeah, that's good enough. Live enough for me.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
Uh-oh. Got the cup that's going to end the world here in my hands.
Jesus.
It's going to cause World War III.
No one really gives a shit, do they?
I don't. And I'm everyone, so no.
I'm
no
just
one
saying,
gives a
like,
shit.
I have a fairly representative slice of culture. Like, again, I'm not a fundamentalist Christian or someone that believes in...
But you're not a coffee drinker. Coffee drinkers are a different
true,
breed,
but I'm
man.
saying, like, I am the only person I know that's not a coffee drinker.
Yes.
So, like, all my friends on Facebook and family and all that stuff, nobody is doing anything but bitching about the people bitching about the Starbucks coffee cup. What is... I mean, what's wrong with it?
They're angry that it's only red, that it has no...
It's got I see
decorations.
A green pagan double-tailed fish woman there.
But it has no decorations, right? It's just... It's a red cup that's representing Christmas for all of Starbucks, and people are up in arms about it.
So if it had a snowflake,
or some white trees and shit, because like, if you look at their previous cups from previous years, they have Christmas decorations on them. But I get this as a branding thing. I get this.
Yeah,
like that makes sense for a It's a fucking corporation, people. These people. These are entities that have no responsibility to Christmas whatsoever.
Yes.
They're designed to be soulless, feelingless entities.
And they have many Jewish, Muslim, atheist, people don't give a shit customers.
Exactly.
That maybe... But the thing is those customers, if there was a white cross emblazoned on that, or a white Christmas tree...
I wouldn't care.
Or a Rudolph with a red nose, they would be like, meh, okay, well, yeah, the world's losing its mind about Christmas again.
So maybe the problem is this is an agnostic cup, right? It does not care about your religion, whatever it is, or your lack of religion, right? Like it's just it's more of a seasonal representation than like a holiday representation.
I will say that it's weird because I've always thought this is silly, but then like, you know, we're doing this thing. If you haven't heard about it, we're doing this Christmas card swap.
We're assholes, yeah.
And that's
we
the thing.
We have no Hanukkah swap. We have no Kwanzaa swap.
So I've as I'm doing the live read, I always say, it's like, it doesn't have to be a Christmas card. Send us a Hanukkah card or whatever, and maybe we'd be clued in that if you don't send us a Christmas card, we can send you a non-Christmas card back.
Yeah.
But I guess I just don't know who would be like. We are non-practice. We celebrate Christmas in the secular sense of the word. And it's all about Santa Claus and trees and presents,
getting
and
together
time.
with family. Yeah.
So,
well, you know,
I don't know that we would have a fan that would be like, I'm offended that you're doing a Christmas card giveaway and not. I mean, I guess we could do
certainly haven't yet. Yeah,
we could do a Ramadan card giveaway and a Hanukkah card giveaway, but I would be appropriating that culture.
Yeah.
Just to not be offensive, which feels like it'd be more offensive.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I'm technically appropriating Christmas. Like, I have no affinity for Christmas, period.
Right, but you were born in a country, in a culture that, well, I guess your culture was non-Christian.
That's the thing. I have no affiliation with it whatsoever from the time of birth.
Well, then what the hell are you doing? Like, am I just dragging you into this?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like
so let me ask
one of the few people I buy Christmas presents for. Yes.
Let me ask you this. I want to start asking some real questions about a relationship here.
Okay.
On
this is good to do live. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I want to see if I can maximize your discomfort. I've been you know, like boiling the frog slowly for the last 5 years. Now I'm gonna hit you with it.
All right.
Would you celebrate Christmas at all if? Or like if Bald Move is a Jim Jones only production, would you do a Christmas card swap or anything around Christmas or pumpkin things? Like, what would you feel pressured to do it, or would you just be like, nah, fuck it, I'm not going to do it? No,
I do it because I know the majority of our audience likes it, right? The majority of this country is Christian. The majority of this country celebrates Christmas. So it's a cool thing to do for the audience. Like, I wouldn't personally care. Like, I don't give a shit about Christmas, really.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't give a shit about dogs either. So I'm a horrible cyborg from another planet. But yeah, I would do it certainly.
So you
for
would
the audience.
You do some kind of.
I mean, the majority of stuff I do in this business is for the audience, right?
Ooh,
that's
just
how it goes.
Say the same.
Well, you
Because
you love to sit down and talk for hours about television. Well, I like
anything.
to have
no anything.
It's true. You love to talk.
Like if I have a beer in my hand and preferably I'm around a fire, then
those are the times when I like to talk. When I'm huddled around a microphone, it's a little bit forced, I guess. I'm still bringing up the points I would bring up if it weren't like, here's the time where you have to sit down and structure this conversation. But it would be a lot more organic, you know. It would just be like, oh yeah, what'd you think about this thing? And you know, there might be 25-second pauses before you move on to the other thing and that kind of stuff. More of a conversation, less of a show.
I see what you're saying.
But like, yeah, I would still do the Christmas stuff.
It's funny to hear you say that, because I feel like we still have more of a conversation, less of a show.
We do, yeah.
Especially like I'm finding that I'm really enjoying our Fargo and Leftover podcasts, because
I'm loving Leftovers. Yeah,
we have points that we want to talk about, but we don't have to follow an outline, and we don't have to recap scenes that we don't care about. The only thing, and I feel like for the first time that, well, maybe it's because these shows are more serious, but when we've done that before, I've always felt like I've left things on the table. Because the one thing about a scene-by-scene recap is every humorous observation or every, you know, really cool shot or individual performance, you get a chance to like praise it out.
It all has a place, yeah.
Whereas when you have an unstructured outline, some of that stuff just gets left, and I feel like, but with the Leftovers and Fargo, I don't know if it's because I've spent more time developing my notes, and I've tried a new system where, because there is no structural difference between the outline I use for scene-by-scene recap and then the outline I use for the Fargo stuff. I essentially take scene-by-scene notes, but I used to spend like an hour or two rearranging my scene-by-scene notes into thematic things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What I'm doing now is I'm just going through and I'm highlighting and bolding things that I want to make sure I talk about. And that way I can quickly, and as we talk about it, I go through my notes and I unbold it. So then it's like very quickly, it's like, oh, what do we got left to talk about? Oh yes, the eyelash on the cheek, kind of thing. But no, I've really been enjoying that.
Yeah, no, I'm having a blast with it. I think it's partially because the season is so good.
Yeah,
that it's prompted me to think about it more in my off time.
Yeah,
like with some of these shows, like you sit down for Walking Dead, it's like, okay, now I have to think about Walking Dead. Like I wouldn't think about this show nearly as deeply if I wasn't doing a podcast on it. So like those are kind of almost, like I said, a little bit more forced. But like the Leftovers, I'm thinking about that shit all the time.
Yeah.
Just like I can't get it out of my head sometimes.
Tuesday feels like the perfect time. Like Tuesday and Wednesday feel like the perfect time because I'm right at my peak. Like my initial thoughts have gestated. And I've gone out and I've seen what other people have to say, and it's marinated, and like I'm at like 2 days after his peak, I'm ready to talk about things.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's working out.
I got a topic I want to talk about.
Okay.
And not just my snazzy OPP hat. I've had a torrid 7-day relationship with Dan Harmon.
Oh, does his girlfriend know about that? He doesn't have a girlfriend anymore, right?
He has a wife. They're going through a divorce, which is part of the torrid relationship. So
sure,
I've heard of Dan Harmon.
And who doesn't have a torrid relationship with Dan Harmon?
I watched a few of the early seasons of Community, and I thought it was great. But I still didn't wasn't a fan of Harmon. I hadn't gone back. I never really watched the Sarah Silverman show that he worked on briefly before he got fired. And I didn't see his he's got this one thing where he did with Jack Black. It's called
Heat Vision and Jack.
Heat Vision, where he had a Knight Rider style motorcycle. And Jack Black was like the Michael Knight, and he had this pilot that it's one of these all-time great pilots that people talk about, like, oh man, imagine that had gotten greenlit, and it didn't.
It's a weird show.
But then I saw Rick and Morty, and I watched that show all 2 seasons in the space of a single weekend, essentially. And I was so impressed. And I watched the first one on Hulu. It was free, and then I couldn't find the second season for free anywhere. So I went and bought it on Amazon, and it came with about an hour and a half ATX, like Austin TV exchange or one of these cons that they go to that had him and Justin Roiland. If you don't know who Justin Roiland is, if you're familiar with Adventure Time, he is Lemon Grab. He's the guy that shouts unacceptable And he's, you know, fairly famous.
It's his claim to fame. He shouts unacceptable.
He essentially, his claim to fame is he shouts in cartoons.
Yeah. Okay.
But he's got a really funny sense of humor as well. And I saw this panel with him and Dan Harmon just talking about their life and the creative process. I'm like, man, this Dan Harmon guy is super interesting. And then someone on the forums, I believe, recommended that we see Harmontown, or maybe it was actually on LWJ&A Run. BT Dubs, we got the Q&A app going, so you don't have to sit around a fire and just let me hold court. You can grab the beer / microphone out of my hand and take over this. But I do want to run for a bit with this Dan Harmon thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch Harmontown. And I was live texting you this thing. I'm like, I'm having a religious experience. I'm converting to the cult of Dan Harmon. I'm quitting Bald Move. And
when did you send that? Like, what stage of the film did you send that?
I think I was about 75% of the way through. Like, some of the disturbing revelations had happened.
Huh. Okay.
But I'm like, and also I at that point I'd heard a couple Harmontown podcasts, because as soon as I got done, so Harmontown is a documentary about the time where Dan Harmon got fired from Community. And as a way to deal with this kind of, and you know, free time and kind of crisis and this dark tea time of his soul, he took his Harmontown variety show that he was doing at the Nerdist Studios at this comic
and releasing his podcasts and stuff.
He decided to take it on the road and take a little tour, and this documentary followed him on the bus city by city and showing, you know, him interacting with the fans and him interacting with the people he does business with and his girlfriend. And but listen to him and this panel and Harmontown and his podcast, I started thinking, like, this guy has really got his finger on like a certain creative pulse. Like, he knows all about like Jungian archetypes, and he's mastered the hero's journey by Joseph Campbell, and he's got like, he knows how to write scripts, but he's also got like hilariously funny, and he's also got a lot of like very controversial, and he knows how to do edgy humor, but he also has like a social conscious. And I'm like, I'm going to quit Bald Move. You can have it. And I'm just going to go and be a Harmon disciple.
I'm shutting down Christmas first thing.
Christmas is canceled.
Yep.
Gone. But then I started finding out. So like, and my girlfriend was into it too. And we're like, oh man, this is so funny. And Dan Harmon kind of reminds me of you, and like all this, that, and oh man, they're getting married, and oh, look at like Dan Harmon and Aaron McGrath's wedding is the best wedding I've ever seen. Like, Dan Harmon wrote it like an episode of Community. Like, there was these vows, like these really self-important vows that was like very Lutheran, that the minister, there's a call and response between like, we are here to observe the joining, we are observing, and they did the bride danced with all the groomsmen, and they had this big song and dance, and the groomsmen are wearing these giant Dan Harmon faces, these masks, and like everybody that you've ever heard is funny or famous was there, and it just seemed like great, and like, oh man, Dan has licked his demons and all this. And then a year later, this was last year, then we found out, like, literally the day after we had this high of Dan Harmon, that they're getting a divorce.
Not surprising in the least.
And then I started reading, like, you know, because the guy, so on Harmontown, he's got this dungeon master that Spencer, he just plucked out of the audience. Or actually, if the way Spencer tells it, this was his calling. Like, you know, he was this nerd that didn't have a life, and he was literally living in his parents' basement, and he was a big Harmontown fan, and Dan Harmon one episode said, man, it'd be cool if we could have a dungeon master to run this. He got his 20-sided dice and his D&D handbooks, and he showed up, and he ran a campaign for them live, and it became a recurring fixture. Now Spencer's this big embedded thing of his cast. He's
went on the tour with him, all that kind of stuff.
And he's on the Harmontown subreddit, and he's like commenting about different stuff, and like a lot of people from Harmontown are on this Harmontown Reddit. It's like a real life soap opera, but it revolves around this guy, this Dan Harmon guy, who's this creative genius, and he's like super smart. He had a really rough childhood. He's got a lot of like, he's been through years of therapy at this point. He's a raging alcoholic, and he's just, it seems like once he gets to know you and loves you, he then starts to abuse you.
Yeah. Yeah,
and be a monster. Like the things he said on some of the things he said that they allude to on the podcast and they mentioned on the Harmontown documentary are just unacceptable. Like you can't talk that way to the people you love around you.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the. I mean, that's probably the main reason I think he's a monster. Like I don't know that I look at his work and say, oh, well, the themes he's talking about and the like the conclusions he's drawing, that's all comedy, right? Like, I don't even know if he believes the stuff that he's saying in the comedy routine. So,
well, that's the thing.
Who cares?
The things
but the way that he interacts with his friends, and just people in general. So, like, and that made the whole thing of the Harmontown documentary ring false to me. Like, I have a hard time.
Shtick. I'm radically honest. I'll tell you how I masturbate and these dark stories about my childhood.
Well, that's fine, but he also has this grand idea about uniting people and like basically the same ethos that Penny Arcade has, except Penny Arcade, those guys seem like decent human beings. Like Mike is a little edgy and Mike's a little antisocial and he's a little like me, but and he'll fly off the handle and he'll say some stupid shit every once in a while, but I don't think he's malicious in his intent. And Dan Harmon certainly is when he gets either a little too liquored up or a little too riled up or like, I don't know what it is, but, and he's also aware of it.
Yes.
Which is such a bizarre thing to me. Like if you are aware that you are actively hurting people in your life and that you're drinking
yourself
and that you're killing yourself, destroying your, I mean, he's not destroying his career, right? He's been super successful.
Well,
it's hard to argue with this guy and his success.
However, you got to also like I thought it was interesting that none of his pilots that he's working on were picked up.
Yeah, where would he be if
he also has like the only thing he's got going for him right now is the Rick and Morty, which is awesome. But any studio that hires him is hiring this part of Dan Harmon, which everyone in Hollywood surely knows about. That he's difficult to work with. That he's, I mean, that's the thing. Like. I think the thing that chilled me, well, there's a lot of things that chilled me the most, but the thing that early on bothered me was Sarah Silverman. She's interviewing. She's like, I love Dan Harmon. I'm his biggest fan. I brought him in as a producer for my television show. And he turned in his monster. And like Sarah Silverman is a very funny person. Like David Cross.
And edgy and
is crass. A very funny. Like none of these people are hacks.
No.
But that's what I got the feeling is like, if you didn't do it the Dan Harmon way, then you're a fucking idiot and you don't know what the fuck you're doing. And you're ruining his fucking show that doesn't even have his name on it. And I'm like, that's terrifying.
And he's going to tell you in no uncertain terms what kind of asshat you are.
Yes.
And in cruel terms. And that's the thing. Like she had to go fire him from that show, even though she was like, you're the funniest thing on this show. Goodbye, because no one can work with you.
Yeah, this show is worse off for you being fired, but the show will not be produced for another year if you remain on.
Yeah, and like I don't know. In some ways, it's hurting his career, but he's still obviously a millionaire and like very successful. He's got TV shows, whatever. Way more successful than I have ever been, or probably will ever be. I just
with certain definitions of success.
Yeah. If podcasting in your pajamas is a definition of success, boom,
you
done
got it. You did it.
But I don't know. That was a problem. Like to me, it became clear in that moment that, oh, this was not a community problem. This was not the people that he's working with on Community being difficult or studios being difficult. This is him.
Yeah.
And the other thing that became apparent over the hour and a half of watching that documentary is that this man does not stop drinking.
No.
And that's causing him serious problems.
Like when we first started doing Bald Move full time, because that was one of our shticks. We always drink on the podcast and, you know, hilarity ensues.
Yeah.
We continued doing that on a full-time basis. And like 2 or 3 months in, we're like,
are we alcoholics?
We have to stop drinking so much. This is really taking a toll on our health and just like how effective we were at life. And like, I have a lot of admiration and respect for alcoholics because like Tyrion said, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. It's really hard to drink that much. And that's the thing. Like, I don't think we were a half or even a third of the intake this guy was doing.
I guess, okay, so admiration and respect is not where I would go. I would say I have sympathy for those people.
Okay, yes.
But I have sympathy to a point. Like, once you realize that this is the problem, and he realizes that the drinking is a huge problem in his life.
Yes.
And he's identified a lot of problems with his personality and his life and the way he interacts with people and his drinking, but he does, he's compelled to continue to do them. And I don't like, I start to lose respect for someone who can see the problems and can do nothing to fix them.
So what I think is interesting is like the Hollywood arc is like, you know, a Rob Lowe or a Tony Stark.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. is they have this substance abuse problem. It slowly wrecks their life and career. They have a moment of clarity where they get the therapy and insight on why they're doing this thing, and then they stop doing that thing. And maybe they have a relapse, but it's not. What's interesting about Harmon is like I feel like he's got all these tools and he's got all the support that he needs. Like, it's funny because I liked Erin McGrathie a lot more before I started listening to Harmontown podcast. I now see her as kind of, yeah, but she was the consummate girlfriend.
Yeah,
like she was super supportive. She helped him like frame things that he was having trouble with in ways that he could understand, and you know, was a sounding board and you know, skillful lover probably. And
wait, how do you infer that? Is that something in the podcast?
They talk about it.
Okay,
they talk about it, and there was more than a little cutesy talk on the show, the Harmontown show.
Gotcha.
But she seemed like she was a really good partner for him and really understood him in a lot of ways. And he still like that. I think the most chilling thing in the documentary was we talked about how he likes making her cry.
Yeah,
like I've heard other abusers talk about it, like they are trying, when they are lashing out at their victims, they're trying to make them cry because that's how they engage their empathy and can stop the cycle. Like, oh, I've made this person my kid or my wife, they're crying, so that breaks, that gets me out of the red zone and I can normalize, which is fucked up.
Yeah,
but this is the first guy I've said that like when they cry, that's when the enjoyment starts. That's when like I'm licking their delicious tear, and I'm like, that's really fuck. And then the one that made me gasp was in the middle of Harmontown where he says, I'm never going to leave you, and if you leave me, I'll kill myself.
That's straight up abusive.
Jesus, I mean, man. Like I get it.
That's
I don't know
ransom.
what's shtick and what's not shtick on Harmontown, but that is that's not fun. That's not good shtick. That's very,
that works in a cartoon. I don't know if it works with a man on stage saying it.
Yeah,
with his girlfriend standing in the wings on the verge of tears. Like, God.
And what is it like to be in the audience when that? Like, it must be a very interesting. It must be a very. Because here's the thing: is I
know people like this.
I'm dying to go see a Harmontown live. That's now I know something I want to do. Like if they're still doing it a year, because I can't afford to do it now, but I want to fly out to California and see a Harmontown episode. Because it's kind of an incredible experience. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what kind of moods Dan's going to be in, how much he's been drinking. Yeah. Also, that was super interesting. The fact that like one time he just got slammered to where he could barely stand and speak. And after the next day, he's talking about like, oh God, I feel like such an asshole. The people that came to see me deserve better. I'm never going to do that again. But like the people loved it. Like if you are paying $10 to see a Harmontown podcast, you probably want to see the one where he shows up just almost blackout drunk and he's just saying insane things and he's free associating and he's like just being this human train wreck. It's such a weird thing. Like,
so there's a difference. I don't understand the
Harmontown fandom. Like, what did they think? How did they feel? I just turned my fucking phone off and it's still beeping at me.
Yeah, throw that thing out the window.
I'm going to.
Nexus 5 is out, man. Go grab it.
I need to. Verizon's literally texting me on a daily basis.
Get you know your Nexus 5.
Did you know you can upgrade your phone for free, you dumb asshole? Why are you putting up with this shitty phone?
Do it. What's wrong with you?
I don't have time. Like, oh, God. I was going to do it last weekend, and I watched all of Rick and Morty in Harmontown. And this weekend I have my child.
Stan Harmon's fault.
Yes, exactly. But no, he's just a fascinating guy, and I wonder if he will ever get his shit together, or he's going like my fear is
the man's like in his 40s, right?
He's going to be a Belushi, or he's going to be a Farley.
He specifically mentions Belushi.
Yeah, I think he's 41 now.
Documentary.
He's like 2 years older than me. And his weight goes up and down. It's just, I don't know, man. He's so fucking funny, and he's got such truthful insights into the human condition. And he talks very eloquently about breaking certain cycles in his life. And then to see him do that, it's just really depressing.
Yeah. I don't know. I find it really tough to take life advice from someone who has large portions of their life completely in shambles. Like, that man does not manage his personal life in any acceptable way.
Like, if he has nuggets of wisdom, like, you don't see, I see it as like,
I mean, I can sort of separate it, but it's also like, do I really think that he's got the right stuff here? Like, it's tough to tell. Like, what is stuff that is solid advice that he's just not following, and what is stuff that's complete bullshit that he is following? Like,
so I also find that he doesn't give a lot of out and out advice. It's just when he tells stories about his life and things and lessons he's learned, I feel like those are valuable lessons to learn. Just he doesn't care.
Learn the lessons.
When he has enough liquor in him, or there's a certain amount of stress in them, he's just going to lash out. And kind of like, the other thing is, he fully commits to those episodes. Like, he starts filming. Like, there's this one time where he whips out a camera on the bus and he's like in a full-length mirror just talking about,
looks like absolute
what
shit.
A terrible person, and I've done it again, and I am just this angry child that can never grow up, and I'm just trapped in this cycle, and like all these things. I'm like, what the fuck, man? I feel like a therapist should be able to help you. Like, if you've been to as much therapy, and
that was one of the scenes that shocked me.
That was definitely the dark part of the documentary.
And you see the bags under his eyes, and the obvious, like, it's the end of the tour, so of course he's going to be tired, but he's got a fucking drink in his hand.
Yeah.
That was the thing that shocked me. It wasn't just he's drinking on stage. He's drinking all the time. He's got a gin and tonic with him, or a vodka tonic.
Like, he'll come up with a mason jar of vodka
on the bus.
Yeah.
While they're traveling to the next destination, every single shot you see him in, he's got a drink.
Yeah.
And that is
kind of
obviously
like a trailer boy.
It's one of the core things I think that is causing him to be the way he is. Because I've known people like that.
Really?
And I would call them alcoholics, where they drink, they think something is going to be funny because they're too uninhibited from their alcoholism.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that it's just cruel.
And then when people are not responding to it, it's fuck you.
Yeah. Then they get mad, and then they lash out against those people because they're not on the same page. I've seen guys like that, and I've stopped being friends with him.
Why don't you think he just do you think, because I noticed that a lot of his crew do the same thing. They seem like they're more successful in their lives, but maybe just because I don't have a documentary, so I don't see who they're abusing.
Sure, yeah.
But like, a lot of the people that he associates with seems to do those things as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I like last night I noticed that on because I just rewatched season 2 of Rick and Morty. I'm obsessed.
I haven't watched it all yet.
And I went to on Amazon. I'm like, oh, well, they had that ATX thing. I'm gonna go look at this Comic-Con panel they did in 2013. Every one of those dudes was either drunk or high, and it's the worst panel I've ever seen. Every one of them, except for some of the voice talent who are actually like, let me try to, this is a new show that we're trying to pitch you on, and you guys are making it sound like it's a shit show. Like, kind of like, haha, funny, but also, we need to make an honest pitch show. Yeah, and I was embarrassed for like all of them. But I don't know. Maybe they're just so they all, man, maybe I should just stop drinking. I don't know, Dan. I don't know. I don't know.
He should stop drinking.
He should. He really should. Like, if nothing else, as an experiment, just stop drinking for a year.
I wonder if he'd be as funny.
I wonder if he thinks that too.
Yeah,
like, he's got so much self-loathing, because that's the one thing you cannot kind of think your way out of. Like, if you got this self-loathing inside of you, it's so painful to deal with, and the processes that work to eliminate the self-loathing are, I've heard, like, I hear Dan mock them. Like, positive self-actualization, which is essentially looking in a mirror and telling you that you love yourself and all that.
Instead of the mirror stuff he does.
Instead of the mirror stuff he does. I feel like he just won't do those things because he's not ready to, or he just feels like they're stupid, or, if you self-loathe yourself and you do things that you think are stupid, then that's just an imitation.
It's also really hard. I mean, that cycle is damn near impossible to break.
Yes.
Like, I went through a phase where I was like extremely fat and just like doing nothing with my life. And, it took kind of an extreme example of that to get me out of it. And like, I didn't even have the drinking problem, right? Like, I wasn't half out of my mind most of the time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, so that's one thing I've always been thankful for. I've never had, anytime that I've been through a depressive episode, I've not had an additional substance abuse problem. Because I remember talking to a therapist, and I asked him, I said, what do you do when you have a person that's super depressed and alcoholic? He's like, you cannot treat any problem until a substance abuse problem has been identified or has been eliminated. Like, you can then deal with the other issues, but if they are in a destructive addiction cycle with drugs or alcohol or anything really, sex, gambling, whatever,
it perpetuates
you have to treat that like as a root cause, and then you can treat the other things. But it's tough, man.
Makes sense. Yeah, and I do feel a little bit of sympathy for him, but at the same time,
I feel a lot of sympathy.
It's
I'm scared
tough
for him
because he knows. He knows, and he just doesn't stop doing the things that are hurting him.
It's one because
other people
I've heard
him.
a lot of things about Belushi and Farrell about, like, I feel like that if Dan Harmon is like these guys, except for these guys, never, there was never a documentary or a podcast where they just threw up on stage their deepest, darkest thoughts. So like these guys, this is a pattern that these kind of guys, these funny, tragic clowns get stuck into. But this is the first time we've seen a person go through it extremely publicly, because it's got the internet, and he's got a podcast that, Chris Farley gets on, hey, I want to do a podcast about how much I hate life and I'm depressed and I'd have a bad relationship with my family,
or a radio show, right?
Lorne Michaels going to be like, no, I'm not producing that, Chris. And I feel like that Dan Harmon's like, well, I got a podcast and I got a bunch of fans and I'm going to
that's
do it.
The democratization of distribution has certainly enabled that.
It's so weird to see the disconnect between the Harmontown family and the impact that he has on people's lives, which seems genuinely positive, and the mayor of Harmontown, who is such a tragic figure.
Yeah, like that's the thing, right? Like, so
it'd be like if Walt Disney was an alcoholic, abusive drug, which maybe he was. I don't know. But that would be the closest thing I can think of.
Yeah, as I said, that some of the stuff he says about that rings false to me. But I guess when you put it in that perspective, like, he can have this outside goal, which is to make people happy.
And he does seem
like himself not be happy. And
he does seem like he shows up to the shows early, meets everyone in line, goes to the bar and hangs out with everyone and like affirms them and hugs them, and like he's very giving of himself.
So maybe he's not being disingenuous. Maybe it's just
he just can't help himself.
Yeah,
Harmontown is for everyone but him, which that's really fucking sad,
and the people closest to him. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you're gonna reach out and try and make the public happy, make your fucking family happy. Make the people around you who have direct contact with you all the time happy. Like,
well, did you see what he did about 3 weeks ago? So I guess he was on a plane ride and he was schlammered
and he shit himself,
and he was on Twitter and he was just pitching stupid TV ideas or jokes or whatever. And one of his fans says, "Are you drinking again? Because these things don't seem as funny as you think they are." Which, first of all,
drinking again, yes.
I see two sides of this story, because one side, this anonymous person is actually being kind of a dick here. Like, he's just being essentially like, I guess if Dan was drunk and hurting himself and funny, he wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Dan just fucking went after this guy, like spent the next hour just devising tweet after tweet about what a loser this guy, and went after his followers and dredged up his tweets. It's just like, who does that?
Why do you give a fuck, man?
And also for such a
you know what I do when that happens?
What?
There's a block button for that.
right.
Like, I've only blocked a few people, but if you're super negative toward everything, and I check out your timeline and it's like, fuck this and fuck that and fuck you and fuck him, I block you, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, but it's like, it gave me pause, because I get it. You're a creative person, you're a public figure, and you're trying to have some fun and entertain your fans, and these people are being negative nannies and trying to make it, I don't know. But I know the solution isn't to then, slit your wrist and spew bloody venom at a fan.
But that's what he does, right? Like, that's not even just with his
I know,
fans.
that's
with everyone.
Like, that's how bad it's gotten. That, like, I wonder.
I see what you're saying as far as like making everyone happy. Yeah.
And so like, is there going to come a day when he's doing a Harmontown and he just does like, just loses it?
Does this on stage to the whole audience.
Stage to the whole audience.
Like a Bill Burr thing, except less funny.
Yeah, like
and
Bill
more
Burr,
tragic.
Or kind of like when Christian Bale showed up.
Yeah, started yelling
Bruce
at the
Wayne's
lighting
birthday
guy.
party. Oh no, okay, yeah.
Bruce Wayne's birthday party? What is this alternate reality?
It's very meta.
It sounds amazing. I want to go.
He threw a birthday party for Bruce Wayne and showed up in character
as Batman. What did Bruce Wayne? What did Bruce Wayne think about it?
No, he showed up as John Connor.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
Yelled at the person that rigged the lighting.
Was he drunk?
Very.
Okay.
No, you know the first Batman where Ra's al Ghul makes him kick everybody out of the house, and he goes and he essentially is drunk, and he's like, "Oh, you fakers and you sycophants and you."
Is that the first Batman?
It is the first Batman.
Jesus, I thought that was like the third.
My 10-second analogy has turned into a 2-minute dissertation on the Dark Knight.
Sorry,
but it's I wonder if that's ever going to happen, and like
I can't imagine that
him, because I feel like how he functions is he's genuine when he says, all I want to do is make people happy.
Fine.
And that is the high that like gets him through and lets him not like kill himself or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like, if he ever fucks that up to where his fandom just like, fuck this guy. But also the fandom seems like it's almost like concerned family members at this point. It's like they feel like they're related to this guy, and it's like, we're worried about it. It's like, if he did that, it'd be sad in the same way to like your uncle going off on a drunken rant at Thanksgiving. It's not like, fuck that guy. It's more like, oh God, man, this is terrible. Imagine what it's like to be his wife and kids.
Yeah. And I'm one of those people who can separate an artist from their work.
Yeah.
So like, I will never think, oh, you know what? I hate this Dan Harmon guy, or I think he's a piece of shit or something. And so I won't watch his show.
No,
like as long as his shows are funny, I will continue to watch them, and I think maybe he'll have a place, to an outlet, you know. Yeah. But like, I can see a lot of people who aren't like that.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so we've been neglecting the Q&A section.
Yeah, that's all right.
So Anthony B wants to know, how is Dan with other guest comedians on his podcast? I'll have to start listening to Harmontown. It's worth listening to. It's sometimes just riotously funny. He seems pretty generous. Like, for example, he had Chris Hardwick on a show because he went on a whim at a Comic-Con, said, yeah, I'll do your Nerdist show. And he didn't realize that I guess he showed up to Green Room while they were doing another panel, and Dan just commenced to drinking. And he got way fucking drunk. And so
I'm sensing a theme.
The Nerdist podcast, like when it's just the Nerdist crew, it's Chris Hardwick and a couple other professional comedians. And Dan Harmon came on there and started doing bits about how professional stand-up comedians are hacks and unfunny. In a way that he was supposed to be funny, but he was, like you said, this guy's drunk, he's not aware he's bombing, and then he's like, him bombing's making it worse. And it sounded like Chris was trying to carry him and keep him out of trouble. But as way of apology,
I can't imagine being Hardwick in that moment. Like, because Hardwick is a recovering alcoholic.
Well, that's the other thing, because like, so Harmon had him on the show and was like I think he was sober on this one, but and he's like, I felt like an ass because I didn't know you're a recovering alcoholic.
Oh, he didn't know.
And they had this like really interesting thing. And it's like, Chris is like, you know what? Honestly, it didn't bother me at all, because the whole time I'm thinking, wow, this used to be me.
And did I ever act like this?
This used to be my life. And how many times did I act like this? And
yeah,
it was like this really, there again, like you'd think that would be a turning point in someone's relationship with alcohol, when a person that's like you essentially said, oh yes, I went through this thing and I did
nearly ruined my life.
But he seems like, it just depends. When he has his friends that are sarcastic and mean, they are sarcastic and mean to each other. But it feels like it's like, seeing two MMA fighters. It's not a bully, someone being beat up. It's two guys that are going mano to mano, and it's that's
fine. I have no problem.
They're having a dance.
Yeah,
but I've never seen him. There's been a couple times where the audience members, there's like a couple loudmouth audience members that think they can just talk out, and he usually stays on the funny side. But there's a couple times where I was holding my breath, just waiting for the Harmontown bomb to go off and being scared for them.
So,
but
he has a lot of episodes, right?
Oh, there's like, I think
100 plus.
I'm on episode 14 of 172 right now.
Okay, so you got a ways to go. I can't wait for it to detonate.
I don't
like
think
I want to. I want an update.
It's one of those things where it's like I'm pretty sure it hasn't detonated yet because people would have talked about it, and I did a lot of reading, and I got a lot of /r/Harmontown because everyone's talking like this divorce thing. This happened 3 weeks ago, and this Twitter thing happened like a week before that. And
I was frankly, when you told me that, I was like, "Yep, that sounds about right."
No,
because watching that, I was like, "That girl." Cannot stay with this guy.
That was the weird thing because when I saw Harmontown, I thought this is a story about this guy and he saved himself through this tour and through these revelations he's had about himself and this creative process he had writing his pilots and the love of his girlfriend and the support of this community. And he now knows what he has to do. And then I read that they got married like a year later. And I'm like, good for you, Dan. But the thing is, like, every one of these things I talk about, I found out like a day apart.
Okay.
Like I lived 3 years of this man's life in the span of 7 days, and it really shook me.
Yeah.
I went from like, oh, good for you. And I've got such admiration for your work and what you're doing. And then like, oh, it looks like you're doing so well. And oh, you went on this Twitter rampage, and oh, you're getting a divorce from your girlfriend that you said you would kill yourself if this ever happened. And
yeah.
And I don't think there's been a Harmontown since the divorce episode. That's what I'm kind of waiting for to see what happens. But then again, I'm forcing myself to listen to them in order.
Oh, okay.
I just got to like the Spencer, Spencer just started running D&D campaigns a couple episodes ago.
I just picked up another podcast myself.
What?
It's called Team GFB Radio.
What's that?
It's Dave Lang, who's the CEO of Iron Galaxies Studios, like video game developers.
What video game do they develop?
They've done a lot of stuff. They did Killer Instinct. They did not the original, the remake. They did the horrible, fucked up, botched job of Batman Arkham City or whatever it is.
Oh yeah,
Arkham.
That was the one before the last one.
Fucking busted.
Arkham Origins, wasn't it? That was the one.
No, it's this latest one.
That was shitty.
Yeah, you didn't hear about that?
What are you?
That thing is a giant pile of, it didn't run, so the PC port of it is a giant.
Oh, okay, yes, I did.
Broken mess of a shitball.
I did hear that.
Okay, they did the port of that.
Oh,
so I haven't listened to the episodes around that.
This is another train wreck you're listening to.
It might be, yeah. Like I totally want to hear it, but Dave Lang is a ridiculous human being, and he travels all over the world and meets with all sorts of video game people and has just story after story after story. The latest one he told, I went back and I listened to a lot of his older stuff. He's got like 60 something episodes, but the latest one he told was about getting Roppongi'd, which is a part of Tokyo. And it's basically this scheme where you know what maid cafes are?
No.
Okay, so in Japan they have these places called maid cafes or something like that, where the girls there will be kind of like all dressed up as like, anime characters or whatever, and they're the servers, and so like they invite you in and they get you.
So it's a Hooters essentially.
Yeah, it's a themed Hooters. Okay. Sure, that makes sense.
So it's a Hooters.
Hooters is just themed boobs and ass.
It's a twins. It's
like
a twin
TNA, if that's the theme.
It's a twist because if I would be like, fuck this shit.
Maybe so.
All right. Then the crazy 88 comes
so
out.
That's the thing.
All right, I'll settle my tab.
So that's the thing. Like they don't let you leave, right, until you sign your bill or whatever, and until you put down a credit card. And say, okay, I'll sign, and you sign it. And they have like the whole thing is being videotaped. So when you sign your card, like they have video of you signing your card. So when you do your chargeback, they're like, no, he signed that, and like he was here in this location drinking these drinks. He bought these things, and they just fuck you. And he was telling me about like. He was telling me on the podcast about some of his friends who have been Roppongi'd, which is the term for it, to the tune of like $100,000 in a night.
Wow.
And the guy, that's the guy who,
right? Or that's not US dollars.
That's dollars. 100,000 yen is like $100.
Well, the joke's on them. They Roppongi'd me. They'd get me to the tune of about $113, and then my credit card would be declined.
Yeah.
So, I'm Roppongi proof.
Sure. But apparently that guy got out of it with like years of lawyers and bullshit like that.
Incidents. Godzilla was involved.
Yeah. Somehow. But he was talking about that, and like he's just got story after story like that.
That's what you want.
Like, we went out drinking until 5 a.m. I had to get up I had to be at the EA at 8 o'clock to have a meeting with the executives, and like, the guy's crazy. You know Jared, right?
Oh yeah,
my friend.
Oh yeah, big red beard Jared.
Yeah, it's like him if Jared were 6'7" and like,
because Jared's already a beast. Christ,
he's a beast. Yeah, but like, this guy is just a monster of a human being and goes out drinking night after night after night.
Wow,
with like high-powered executives from all these companies, and like, gets wasted.
Yeah,
and goes out and makes deals. Puts it together, man. It's holding it down.
It's the wolf on Silicon Valley Street. Sounds like
pretty much, yeah.
Crazy. Wow. So let's get back to the. Let's go back.
Oh. Yeah, Dave Lang, he's crazy. I found him through Giant Bomb.
Also, been listening to Justin Roiland's podcast called Grandma's Virginity. Justin Roiland is the voice of Rick and Marty.
That's horrifying.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, I haven't figured the etymology out yet, but
is he funny?
Pretty funny, and less angsty. Just pure like wackadoo madness.
Yeah, I could be more angsty.
It'd be hard.
So what do you think with Rick and Morty? Does occasionally they'll like bust out into song and dance and like do these weird, bizarre things that kind of feel out of character for the characters in that universe? Is that Justin Roiland, or is that?
It's yes. I feel like so. Justin Roiland is all about these are insane ideas. And Harmon is all about how can we put an emotional framework that this is actually a story. Yeah, that's how they. Although Harmon is pretty good at absurdity and all that, but I feel like that's all that Justin is good at. That pure manic energy.
That strikes me.
He
as
actually
true,
might be bipolar too. That's the other thing about Justin Roiland. He might have an untreated mental illness.
That I have much more sympathy for than raging alcoholism.
Yeah. So. Let's get to the next thing. Dr. Ken says, your Harmon discussion is seriously harshing the buzz about cocktails with Jim and A-Rod.
We don't have a problem, though.
I don't think, no. I'm not
I certainly don't miss drinking on the days that I don't drink.
Yeah.
So, like, and I've never stared into a bathroom mirror and questioned my existence.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said.
And whether I'm harming the people
and I feel
like
that's because we actually had a serious discussion. Like,
yeah.
You will tell me, right? Like if I become an alcoholic, you will take appropriate steps.
You were drinking a monumental amount this morning.
Yes,
at like 10 a.m.
Now you're muddying the waters.
No, it was 10 a.m. man.
No, I know, but I'm saying you're acting like this is something that I do all the time.
No, it's not. It was
my succubus girlfriend said, "Hey, remember that time we did Double White Russians 3 weeks ago? It was a super funny podcast.
We should do that again."
And that was of an evening. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like not okay. And I started mixing it, and it's milk, it's breakfast.
How did you mix it? I don't have any milk here, man.
No, I made it. I got my own supply.
You brought that with you?
I brought this with me.
Oh,
and it was this. It was this thing full of this is like ice, but it was this thing full of White Russian, and mixed to the appropriate. And I got like by the end of that podcast, I was. My face was numb is what it was. That's when I know that it's going bad.
Yeah.
So but that's fun. That's the thing, like engaging in substances that twist up your minds and emotions are fun as a vacation.
Yeah.
But it's not something place you want to live.
Yeah.
So, and that's the other rule that's cut me from being an alcoholic or a drug addict is I have this ironclad rule that I party when times are good. I stay sober when times are bad. So I feel like that keeps me out of a lot of trouble. Like if I'm really down or I've gone through some depressive shit in my day, and I stay sober and I deal with it.
Yeah.
And because it's a very slippery slope, numbing, self-medicating.
Yeah, I've been there just with food.
Okay. Well, I might, that might be my one addiction. I don't know. All right. So yeah, don't be. And by the way, he's talking about. So last week we talked about, like what if we could move lunch with Jim and Aaron? Like, it changes the schedule and it's all this and that. But we had an idea of like, why can't we do a cocktails with Jim and Aaron or drinks with Jim and Aaron? Or Jim and Aaron's happy hour, where we do it like 9 or 10 o'clock of an evening, which is going to hit the. I might be screwing this up because I feel like we'd be well positioned to be fairly good internationally because like lunch already hits the Brits and the the Franks and the Spaniards and the
what are the Germans?
The Huns. It hits them
essentially Huns. Yeah.
The Teutonic peoples. It hits them kind of like their quitting time, early evening.
Okay.
If we did cocktails at 9 or 10, that's going to hit around lunchtime for the Australians. And then it's going to be somewhere in between, like, either lunch or dinner for people in, Asian and South Asian. And I don't know about the Middle East and all that. If you're from, Syria and you want us to do lunch with Jim and Aaron to take your mind off of how terrible things are, write us an email. We'll see if we can accommodate. But I think that's
sure. If you're in a refugee camp somewhere in Greece.
Yeah. And I don't think I don't know if it's going to be a weekly or if it's going to be bi-weekly.
All right.
But we're moving forward onto making something like that happen in the very near future. And, stay tuned. Do you want to talk about the other initiative we're thinking about doing? I mean, we put it on the VIP section of the forum. These are club members. The Bald Movies.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
So we're thinking, like, we've actually built up every time we used to do movies, it would just completely fail. Like, there's this one summer where both of us were unemployed. And because I was in between jobs, I had a severance package, blah, blah, whatever. I wasn't homeless. And we were living together.
No, I wasn't homeless either.
You were living in my home.
Yeah.
So we decided to try something where we would have people vote on baldmove.com. This is like 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Vote on baldmove.com and we will go see the movie. Well, here's all the movies that are opening this week. And you pick the movie we'll see, and then we'll go out and see it.
This was before we had any kind of, monetization.
Well, we're about
in place.
We were 5 to 10 times smaller too. We didn't have any monetization, and we're like, the way you will pay for that is it'll cost you $1 a podcast to get through the paywall, pay for it, and then you can listen to the podcast. We lost our shirt.
It's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
I mean, lost our shirt means like 2 unemployed guys spending $30 a week to go see a movie that 2 people bought. Yeah,
we weren't able to cover $40 to $50 of revenue on that. Now we're looking at ways, because I think in 2016 we're looking at ways we can expand our club offering, because right now I feel like we are serving we've got all the people that want to support us out of the kindness of their hearts, and there's some people that are really diehard Jim and Aaron fans that love this lunch stuff, and we're serving that community. What else can we do to actually entice people to join the club? And one of the things we our movie coverage with this commission podcast stuff, our Bald Movies feed is starting to build up some decent traffic. What if we had a special feature where first run movies, this movie's coming out Friday, we'll go see it on Thursday, and then we'll do the Jim and Aaron treatment on it, and then it'll be ready by lunchtime-ish on Friday. Would that be something that people would see as a benefit? And it seems like people are fairly excited about it.
Yeah, I think so.
Now we're in a situation where we can, we can try that out and see if people like it. And it's something that will be behind a paywall. We're also thinking about ways maybe after 4 to 6 weeks, it'll automatically rotate.
Yeah, we've talked about as few as 2 weeks, but
I think 2 weeks is too low. Because the thing is the thing about paywall is that when you put something behind a paywall, you're essentially saying this thing's not growing anymore. Its audience is as big as it's ever going to get, because people aren't going to listen to something. You're not going to be able to hear I see this first run movies with Jim and Aaron. Let me give it a listen to. Oh, I have to pay for it. Well, there's no examples of this anywhere in the archive or anywhere that I can find. So why would I want to pay for that? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, there are other more organic ways into that, but sure.
Okay.
For the most part, I agree.
All right. So I do want to have some of it, and we've also thought about the same thing with Lunch with Jim and Aaron. After we turn over years of the content, what if we unlock on a rolling year basis old Lunch with Jim and Aaron, so non-club members can listen to it, and the hopes of that from a marketing standpoint is people listen to that and they're like, oh, I really like this, and they get to they burn through the year.
Oh, there's 9 more months of this stuff, but I can't access it.
Yeah, and for $1, for just a fucking $1 a month, I can access this content. And they lose their mind, and they before they know it, they break out in a sweat, and their wallets are out, and bits are flowing, and we got them for $1, another fucking $1.
Then they download all of it in 1 month and cancel. They got it all.
Still got your dollar, fucker.
That's true.
We'll see you next year. We will see you next year, and we'll get that dollar again. So yeah, that's kind of how the things work in. And we're trying to figure out what's the best way to do all that, because our number one responsibility is to make it feel like, I mean, our mission statement is the club should feel like it's just a ridiculous embarrassment of a good deal.
Yeah, the price is pretty easy to hit that mark.
If you like our stuff at all, more than just a show or two, like, you should get it just because it's just such an awesome deal.
And we don't have to pitch you guys. You already know that.
Yeah, but we're like talking like, you know, behind the scenes stuff of why we're doing this.
Yeah. But it seems like it would be cool.
And we won't be alcoholics while we do it, Dr. Ken. And if we do, hopefully you can hook us up with a liver transplant doctor.
Yeah, but as far as like, you know, a draw to the site, it depends on like how long we time lock them, but maybe like people come in from that too. Like this, I don't know.
Last audience participation, then we got to go. This is about nothing that we talked about so far. Fernando R says, with Game of Thrones Telltale episode 6 dropping on my birthday, 11/17.
11/17.
Till I see a Jim and Aaron live episode 6 run through, so I can mark it on my calendar. I would say probably next season of Game of Thrones, because that seems like we are going to get the biggest bang. Plus, I don't want to do just one episode. I want to do, like, hopefully they'll have the rest of it out. Like, it would be nice just to conclude. Is episode 6 concluding the saga?
I think it might be.
Oh, well, shit.
Yeah, yeah.
That blows my argument out of the water. But
I'm not. Did we do 5? I'm not sure we did 5.
We did everything that was released at the time.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's, I'm assuming I don't know 5, or he would have asked us about 5 too.
Yeah, I don't know if
one came out like the week of, and we were like kind of hemming and hawing. We like decided to go ahead.
That must have been 5.
Yeah. But yeah, probably when Game of Thrones comes back, because we like the, you know, we get was that a so it seems like it'd be smart for us to wait until we have a bunch of dedicated Game of Thrones fans to advertise to and say we're concluding our run. Maybe we'll unlock the first one so you can get a taste of what it's like if it's not unlocked already. Because I feel like 1 or 2 of those is already just free. And then we'll do the thing. Because
no, we did all of our Walking Dead stuff for free, but our Game of Thrones, I think, was all premium only.
The problem with our Game of Thrones stuff is some of that stuff was like, we were having crashing problems. Like, it wasn't our best foot forward. Maybe we can go through and edit some of that and make it flow a little better.
Yeah.
But
we have 18 minutes on the front of the first one, which is just oysters, clams, and cockles. That song playing over a countdown timer.
What the fuck were we thinking?
We were thinking, wouldn't it be hilarious to troll our audience?
No, you were thinking that. I was saying I have grave concerns. I have grave concerns. Also,
well, we said we were going to trim it off the YouTube video, and we never did.
Why didn't I tried?
Well, I forgot.
For whatever reason,
that's right.
Remember, the video manager on YouTube wouldn't let me, and I was like,
so I think it was because it was still processing the high definition versions of it.
Dude, I tried like days late. I mean, what I should do is, if we're going to do that and give that away, I should download it, trim that video, like leave it maybe 15 seconds of a countdown so they can get an idea of what it's like, and then go in.
That was pretty amazing.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was fun. I like that show. I like
playing the games is fun. Sure.
It is. I mean, I would never play a Telltale game because like that kind of just essentially choose your own adventure stuff doesn't appeal to me. But when I do it with you and, you know, we have the in-universe jokes and stuff, that makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, guys. And gals, I hope you liked the lunch this week and are looking forward to cocktails in the future. But we'll be back here next Friday with another one.
Yeah.
And we're still eyeing each other like hawks. We're looking at this alcoholism. We got it on. Sure. This is spotlight.
I had a glass. Is that all right?
Yeah, 1 glass. You know, you're done for the day.
Sure. Yeah.
I better not see alcohol touch your lips.
Nah.
So, because then you'll have a problem. Well, we will see you guys next week.
See you.
Bye.